not to testify in his own defense.
Michael Sussman stood before Judge Christopher Cooper and confirmed that he would not testify in the case. His legal team, they feel confident about the case where it is right now. If you put a defendant on the stand, it's a little risky because you're opening him up to cross-examination by special counsel John Durham's legal team. Sussman is charged with lying to the FBI, specifically then FBI General Counsel James Baker, when he came to Baker in September 2016 and said he had some information linking the Trump organization to a Russian bank with Kremlin ties via a computer server, kind of a back channel.
Fox's David Spond reports Sussman told Baker he was not acting on behalf of any client when he came forward, but prosecutors produced evidence that Sussman billed the Clinton campaign for that meeting. The FBI found Sussman's claim to be baseless. Closing arguments are also scheduled Friday in actor Johnny Depp's defamation lawsuit against ex-wife Amber Heard following 6 weeks of at times tawdry testimony. Despite record-high gas prices, AAA predicting 39 million Americans will make road trips this holiday weekend. Don't bet against the house. Las Vegas is making a post-pandemic comeback.
Gambling in Las Vegas continued a 14-month hot streak in April. In fact, it was the best April ever for Nevada casinos overall, as they reported winning over $1 billion statewide. It likely had something to do with increased travel to the region. Vegas's Reed International Airport says it tallied almost 4.26 million arriving and departing passengers last month. That was just below the 4.28 million travelers the airport handled just prior to the start of the pandemic. Tom Rigotti, Fox News.
And in Washington, I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
The Federal Reserve is starting to increase interest rates to fight inflation, but they're still so low, making it the perfect time to refinance your home, to lower your rate, and perhaps take advantage of its increased value to put some cash in your pocket during these uncertain times. Cash that you can have the freedom to access when you want, where you want, with your Bank Pacific Visa debit card. Lower your rate, put cash in your pocket. Access your cash when you want, where you want, with your Visa debit card. Where others put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, credit conditions apply.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Subway's Eat Fresh Refresh does it again, bringing back a classic fan favorite on the menu. The roast beef returns. And not just any roast beef, it's choice Angus roast beef, flavorful and satisfying on its own, or layered with oven-roasted turkey and Black Forest ham in the Subway Club. Whether you're a choice Angus roast beef purist or like the variety of the Subway Club, both come piled high on hearty multi-grain bread with fresh hand-sliced veggies. Get your fill of the new roast beef at Subway. Eat fresh.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to say that for a couple days on the air because Jose and I have the usual weekend blues, today being Friday and all. And it's even worse this Friday because Monday is a holiday, so no Tall Tales on Monday either. But we're troopers. We'll somehow survive it all and be back on Tuesday, big as life, twice as ugly. All right, let's start out today with what passes for an editorial from the Daily News. At least it's on the editorial page. Our View Guma program helps residents turn passion into opportunity. Dayton resident Rita WOJCIE Chowski. And I thought Klitzkie was bad. Yeah, I'm a Smith compared to this lady. Shows an image of a table she fabricated from repurposed tires during a Guam Unique Merchandise and Art Training course. You get it? GUMA. Guam Unique Merchandise and Art Training course at the Dededo Senior Center. The workshop was designed to help budding entrepreneurs in the community with how to start a home-based business. The Daily News congratulates and commends the GUMA program pioneers and participants for creating new opportunities for business success on Guam. So once again, this looks like a news story refashioned into an editorial. Guam is home to thousands who bring creative ideas and talents to the table. They are crafters, artists, bakers, fashion designers, photographers, musicians, talk show hosts. And the list goes on. These individuals have long contributed to the unique fabric of Guam's cultural identity. But beyond strengthening the arts and humanities on Guam, these artisans have been growing their niche market as valuable members of the business community. And thanks to the forward thinking of the Guam Unique Merchandise and Art Program, there's been a growing movement to help our talented creators cultivate their skills and turn their ideas, products, and services into viable business opportunities. According to the GUMA website, the program was formed by the Galiti Group and DFS Guam in 2013 in an effort to provide the support, resources, and guidance local artists and cultural producers need to turn their creativity into marketable, competitive businesses. Since then, the GUMA program has become an official nonprofit. We have a lot of those nonprofit businesses on the island, and not by design either. Thanks to the Red Queen that is partnered with the Pacific Island Small Business Development Center. Together, they've mentored more than 9 cohorts. They've mentored more than 9 cohorts. Wow. With more than 200 individuals and served as an incubator. Wow. They got all the right stuff here. Mentored, cohorts, incubators for more than 30 successful local businesses. We commend the Galiti Group for keeping the GUMA program going strong and for taking efforts a step forward by bringing the GUMA initiative directly into our villages through Bisinun Mami. I think it's Bisinun, I would say Business Mommy, but that's just me. A home-based business development program. And next week, another cohort will celebrate their completion of the GUMA program. GUMA is excited to graduate our 9th cohort of participants from a 16-week entrepreneurial training and mentoring program. GUMA Executive Director Monica Guzman said in a news release, "These 20 inspiring entrepreneurs have dedicated their time and efforts to pursue their dreams and passion to own and operate their own businesses. As we look toward building a sustainable green economy, Guam will need these initiatives like the GUMA program to help those who choose to pursue creative and artistic passions as a way of life. Opportunities for success can be found beyond college degrees. We applaud all those brave enough to pursue their life goals on paths less followed, and we commend those who help these pioneers along the way," demonstrating quite clearly the difference between putting words on a page and saying something. Now, I saw this picture on the front here, this picture of Rita, I'm going to just call her Rita Ski, and she's shown a table fabricated from repurposed tires. And this is, I guess, the kind of thing that GUMA encourages. So she took used tires and turned them into a table. Well, I saw an example of some repurposing today. In fact, I see it every day. I do a lot of walking on Didasco Street up in Jigo. And, you know, there are a lot of artifacts, modern Chamorro artifacts strewn along the street, dead couches, dead washing machines, dead dryers, dead refrigerators.
Repurposed as rain catchers.
Well, and then, you know, I saw this one homeowner who didn't like the idea of people using the area between his fence and the road as a dump. So he had a nice sign, you know, pretty decently looking sign, no dumping, white sign, no dumping. But you know what he posted it on? A dead refrigerator. So
that'll work.
Yeah, it'll be there for a long time, and no one's going to steal it. Yeah, so, you know, that would be anybody out there who's interested in the repurposing business. What you could do would be to drive on almost any street on the island, any one of the non-numbered streets, pick up all the dead refrigerators, take them to your shop, and then paint no dumping on the side of them, and then take them back out where you found them. Maybe even charge $5 or so. What do you think, Jose?
I was going to say, put your political sign on a refrigerator. Sure not to blow over during a typhoon.
Hey, that's an even better, yeah, during this time of political signs, right?
Repurpose.
Yeah. Okay, Daily News, no Blue Star today again. And let's take a peek at the card and see what we've got on the card for today. We've got Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. I don't know if you noticed, but I didn't wear my red shirt on Monday this week. I had some cookie pushing to do after the show, so I dressed up. My red shirt is not my most fancy shirt, so I wore something a little fancier, but the principle is still the same. You've got to know the difference between red and orange. We'll get into that a little bit later on in the show. I've got Judy Wanpat versus Talina. And this is a very nice demonstration of what's known as the Hobson's choice. Without going into the background, Hobson's choice means no choice at all. And then we're going to replay Bavacqua versus the Treasury. Then I've got Kool-Aid versus Vicente Blas Tyron.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to give you a tip here. I'm going to give you a spoiler alert. If you don't want this spoiled for you, plug your ears right now. Kool-Aid versus Vicente Blas Tyron. Kool-Aid won. This is just an autopsy of Mr. Tyron. Then I've got Pete Scrow versus Vanessa Williams. And I've got Beto versus Robert.
Beto the Beta.
Beto versus Robert. And a spoiler alert there, yo soy Robert. Yo no soy Roberto. Yo no soy Beto. Beto needs to be able to say that himself. And then I've got Tom Woods versus Eco-Fascists. And last on the card, and this probably will be timed perfectly, right around the trip to Churchill Downs, France versus Russia. And I don't know if it'll happen, but I would not be surprised if we had a phone call from the Frenchman. Okay, so I'm going to skip right over Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. I think everybody's pretty well got a handle on it. Going through the notices in the paper, Tuesday, May 31, quarterly membership meeting at the Hyatt Regency of the Guam Visitors Bureau. I was going to go myself, but You had to call in by, let's see, RSVP was, I think I missed the deadline. I'll try again. If I can get in, I'll go. It's 11 till 2 on Tuesday. Oh, yeah, RSVP no later than 3 p.m. on Friday, May 27th. I'm going to have to hurry like hell to make it. Yeah, maybe I can get Speaker Terlahi to help me with that. Just call the Visitors Bureau folks and say, well, I made a tentative reservation.
Sounds convoluted.
Yeah. And let's see. So it's a quarterly meeting, and they're going to entertain the GVB management report and the GVB tourism report. Now, it costs $38.50 a head. But if it's going to be Carl Gutierrez versus the board, since we can't go to the cockfights anymore, this might very well be worth $38.50. So if I can get in, I'm going to go. And then I've got the only one mistake here. The Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority has a notice for their Board of Commissioners meeting. Yeah.
Now, which one is it?
Yeah. Well, there is a commission that runs the Guam Housing and Urban Renewal Authority. People who sit on a commission are called commissioners. Commissioners sit on a commission. There's no board involved here. But they're having a notice for the Board of Commissioners meeting. But it's a shame because everything else they did exactly right. They've got it right down to the way it should be done. So I've off every day I'm poking fun at somebody who doesn't do it right. These guys actually got it right. Congratulations, Gura. Okay. Judy Wanpat versus Talina. Excuse me. Judy Wanpat 10 versus Talina. Her name is actually Judy Wanpat 10. Her surname is Wanpat 10. And I guess if her surname is Wanpat 10, her son should be referred to as Melvin Wanpat 10, right? Now, a little refreshing of the recollection is necessary here. Judy Wanpat was the Speaker of the Legislature back in, I think it was the 32nd. At the beginning of the legislature, they entertained a salary increase package for several executive branch employees, and part of the package was a raise for senators, but they said, no, we don't want to do that. We're not going to raise our own salaries. A couple of weeks after the election, all of a sudden they changed their mind. Maybe they should raise their salaries. Theirs, the governors, and the mayors. So they were called into special session by acting Governor Ray Tenorio. And the special session was to begin at I believe it was 10 a.m., or maybe it was 2. And he sent the call for special session like 2 hours before the session was to start. Of course, we know that Ray Tenorio was quick on the draw, right? So they met in special session. Acting Governor Tenorio also sent a bill. Now, the governor under the Organic Act has the ability to introduce bills into the legislature. He sent a bill to give the governor, the lieutenant governor, the senators, and mayors a raise, a substantial raise, about a $30,000 raise, from approximately 55 grand to about 85 grand. Wow! Bad, but even worse, retroactive back to the beginning of the session. Now, this was a group that didn't want to raise their salaries at the beginning. Once the election's over, hey, let's try it now. I think it's safe. We're not going to lose the election based on this. The election's over. Ha, ha, ha.
We're already in.
We are in. The legislature didn't debate 2 hours on this before they swiftly passed it. Since they passed it without any amendments whatsoever, the bill did not have to be engrossed. So they put together the enrolled bill. The Speaker signed it. The secretary attested, they whipped it off to Ray Tenorio, who signed it the same day. Yeah. What? A guy named Paul Chotfris, who was active on another medium at the time, referred to it as the great salary smash and grab. It's just like these things you see on TV where guys come into jewelry stores with crowbars and smash the glass cases for the jewelry and just scoop it up. Same principle, the great salary smash and grab. This was Judy Won-Pat-10 and 9 other senators that voted for it. Thus, the Won-Pat-10. Yeah. So the salary increase became effective near the end of November. The money was in the senators' pockets before Christmas, even though it broke the budget of the legislature. Now, you know how slow the legislature, how slow Gov Guam is for pay, right? Not this time. Boy, it just whistled through there. So in the next session, the San Nicolas Five, and I'll never forget Mike San Nicolas for this, Mike San Nicolas and 4 other senators started the effort to roll it back. And it took them a while to do it. And all of the Won-Pat-10 at one time or another fought it tooth and nail, the ones that were still around. Fought it tooth and nail. But they were very clever. They would they would amend bills with poison pills. So you'd have a bill to roll back senators' salaries, and then you would add a floor amendment to roll back mayor's salaries also. And then if you're sitting in the back, if your name was Won-Pat, you could sit in the back and you could do strategic voting. When you saw that there weren't enough votes to pass the bill, you voted for it. Then you've got bragging rights. I voted to roll back my own salary, but the votes just weren't there. Rory did that. So it became a game. And it was a game that was pretty costly because 7 senators lost their seats, including Judy Won-Pat-10. She went on to bigger and better things after that, a principal of a charter school somewhere. Yeah.
That's still in discussion.
Yeah. So now, you know, enough time has gone by that the conventional wisdom of Guam politics should have kicked in. Conventional wisdom is this. You know, if you do something, senators, if you do something like give yourself a raise or confirm John Dillinger as chief of police or something like that, people will be really mad for a while. But give it a few weeks and they forget it, and they'll still vote for you. So you can, you know, passage of time, they'll forget. Well, I didn't forget. What is the mascot animal of Republicans?
The elephant.
The elephant never forgets. Yeah. So, and now, I didn't forget. And as far as I can help, no one else will ever forget either. The Judy Won-Pat-10, the great salary smash and grab. Now Judy wants to service in Washington. Now, in addition to that, her other talents are she's pretty much been against the military buildup and, in a sense, anti-military. Ray covered it on his show this morning. So, you know, our tourist industry is just about dead. We're trying to, it's on life support at best. We lost our fishing industry 20 years ago when all the doggone tuna fish swam away. I guess they couldn't read the law. So the next thing we want to do is probably see if we can spike the whole military thing too. Then we'll be right exactly where we want to be. I don't trust Judy Won-Pat. I didn't trust her in the legislature after the Won-Pat-10 incident. I don't trust her in the United States Congress. Talina isn't exactly Daniel Webster when it comes to legislative material. I'll never forget Talina and the 1982 Superior Court case story. I'll tell it again. You may have heard it before, but it's a good story. Talina did a press release saying that these programmatic agreements need to be signed by the governor. And she said the reason because there's a 1982 Superior Court case that held that. So I saw that and I said, man, that's really interesting. Now, you could find a 1982 Superior Court case. At the time you could, if you didn't have anything else to do, if you didn't know the style of the case or anything else. So I wrote an email to Talina's office, please send me the case. And I got a very polite email back from one of Talina's staffers saying, dear Mr. Klitzkie, we received your email, et cetera, asking for blah, blah, blah. Sincerely, Susie Smuckahuckowitz. No case. So I let it go for a couple of days. Nothing happened. I sent a sunshine. Public records. And at the end of the 4-day waiting period, I got an email back that they didn't have that public record. So I'm thinking, you didn't have it, but you made a press release based on that case? So they didn't have the case. So then I wrote another sunshine saying, give me all the public records that you have that show that you didn't do this just to get some free earned media. And of course, there was no public record like that. So what she sent back was the electronic version of the Organic Act of Guam. This is the name of the show is Tall Tales. And I sometimes tease that the reason that I call it Tall Tales is because I never let the truth interfere with the telling of a good story. But what I just told you is the absolute truth. This actually happened. So, of course, there was, and then she said she was going to ask the Attorney General for an opinion on that matter. Well, the Attorney General writes back and said, it's a criminal case. There's nothing there. So what it really amounted to was Talina Nelson fababaing PNC News, because PNC News ran it like it was a real news story. And then when the Attorney General's opinion came out, they just let it sit there. So Talina won that one. She won the battle. So I don't know how Talina is going to do in Washington. I wonder if she packs the gear.
Well, Mike St. Nicholas gave out cookies. She could probably give out the Organic Act.
That's true, yeah. Autographed copies of the Organic Act. So, however, now there is one thing that distinguishes these two that may very well cause me to consider voting for Talina. We've got Jim Moylan, who says he's going to run on a Republican ticket. You know why he's running for the Congress, Jose? Because if you are a member of the Congress, even a delegate, you have something that's called the franking privilege.
I know where this is going.
Now, you hear the word franking privilege. What does that mean? Is it like our Frank? No. Frank Ogan or something like that? Franking privilege. Does that mean that you never have to beat around the bush? You could be frank every time you open? No, that's not what it means. The franking privilege means that a member of Congress, including a delegate, can send out unlimited amounts of mail through the U.S. Postal Service without charge. For Jimmy Moylan, that would be reason enough for him. Boy, if I got elected delegate, if I were I'd get the franking privilege, and I could crank out a great gross of letters to the governor of Guam every single day, and it wouldn't cost me a cent. Such a deal, Jimmy's saying. Yeah. But to Talina's credit, and not to Jim's credit, Talina is the sponsor of the Heartbeat Act. So she may be a lot of things, but pro-abortion, she is not. And in this particular context, given who else is running, that cures a lot of faults. So, Talina, just consult with Jimmy before you leave about how to handle your correspondence, and you may be okay. Yeah. A couple other things I want to comment here on this WANPAT article. Former Speaker and longtime Democrat Senator Judy WANPAT officially threw her hat into the race. You don't throw your hat into the race. You throw your hat into the ring. If you're going to use figures of speech, do it right. She threw her hat into the ring for Guam's delicate seat Thursday afternoon.
A bird in the hand is worth two in the cage.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, he was a good baseball player. He was so good he got the hat trick. With this campaign, this is a quote, I am committed to working for our families, our economy, our environment. Our environment, that's pretty scary. She said at a press conference at Asiga after filing her candidate packet with the Guam Election Commission. Today, we see our families suffering, impacted by poverty, drug addiction, violence, and the lack of access to health care. We're losing our lands.
Aha! See, whenever WANPAT says our, we know who they're talking about.
We know exactly who she's talking about, yeah. We are losing our lands. I'm sure she's concerned about the little postage-sized pieces of property that I own in Jigo. I don't want Bob to lose his lands.
Nope.
Families can't afford to rent, let alone buy their homes. Our economy is suffering on multiple fronts, and our environment is under siege for the sake of progress. Our environment is under siege for the sake of progress. Do you smell an eco-fascist here, Jose? Special provision for island territories. Yeah, no new construction on sacred lands. See definition section, sacred lands, the entire island of Guam. The people of Guam are hardworking, and we're fierce in a way to defend what's ours. Our families, our homes, our way of life, WANPAT said. You know, it kind of borders on a word that is used oftentimes in American politics that I'm going to have to once again explain. It sounds like she is a nativist. Now, I got to explain that. Everybody out there, well, yeah, she's a native. No, that's not what it means. A nativist is an American, a regular standard white-bread American citizen, more at least first generation or later, right? And a nativist is one who takes a strong stand against immigration from foreign countries. If you go through American history, you'll find that the Know Nothing Party was a nativist party. And there was a lot of heat and steam generated by this whole idea of nativism. Now, it doesn't have anything to do with what we think of as a native of Guam. But she sounds like a nativist when she says, we defend what's ours. Our families, our homes, our way of life. Don't be coming in here and telling us that our red rice is actually orange. Yeah. No way, Jose.
Wait, what?
Let's take a short break.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarte Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Kings Guam World Tennis Tour, presented by GTA, is bringing international tennis back to Guam. 4 weeks of international play will swing into action with 2 weeks of juniors, followed by 2 weeks of pros, May the 15th through June 12th. The Guam National Tennis Federation will host world-ranked players who will be coming to Guam from all over the world. Netters will compete for ranking points and cash to improve their position among the world's best. Matches will be played daily at the Guam National Tennis Center in Harmon, starting May 15th through June 12th. Special thanks to our platinum sponsors, Dimension Systems, New Gen, American Medical Center, and Morico Equipment.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Now, this next paragraph is a really good example of how a newspaper reporter can frame a story to put someone in a better light than the actual facts would warrant. Watpat 10 has 25 years experience as an educator and served 9 terms as a speaker. She was the first woman to serve as Speaker of the Guam Legislature, a role she filled for 10 years. After coming in 20th in the field of 30 candidates during the 2016 election. Okay, well, 20 out of 30, that's not so bad, right? She missed the cut. She didn't make the cut by 5 after coming in 20th and missing being reelected by 5. But no, 20th in a field of 30. Well, that's not so bad, right? She got beat. She lost. Okay, so she lost during the 2016 election. Per my explanation, the people did not forgive her for the Watpat 10.
Sounds like she got a participation award here.
Exactly. Yeah. So she, after coming in 20th and being being a victim of the turn the rascals out, she took a break from elected office. Well, everybody who gets beat takes a break from elected office. See what I mean by framing? This all, oh, yeah, she's 25 years and she finished 20th. 20 out of 30, and then she took, well, no, she got soundly beaten because of what everybody and his brother perceived as misconduct in office. And because she got beat, she wasn't in elected office.
She didn't have a choice.
She did not have a choice. Going on, I've seen our people suffer, our people. And I can't sit back anymore, she said of her decision to return to politics. Watpat stopped short of promising any specific legislation, probably because she doesn't have any, which she said couldn't happen overnight. Then why are you running?
Unless it's a pay raise.
Yeah, you can copy and paste from your last triumph. She asserted that she was a workaholic. There are 435 members in the House and 100 in the Senate. So what needs to happen, first of all, is to make sure that we educate members of Congress and the federal departments and agencies about who we are, where we are, and what our needs are, she said. That includes grants and subsidies that weren't always available to the territories. More recognition was needed for Guam's value as a bridge for American and Asian communications, travel, and commerce, Watpat said.
You know what? Just real quick, Bob. When she said we need to tell Congress or educate about who we are, where we are, and what our needs are, the reporter should have said, oh, yeah, could you please tell us?
Yeah. But, you know, it's obviously a puff piece. I didn't pay attention enough to know. Well, it's a Rick Cruz photo. I don't know who wrote the story. Now, she talks in terms of Guam's value as a bridge for American and Asian communications, travel, and commerce. I don't see anything in here at all about Guam's recognition as a valuable military asset, because we don't like that. We would like to have that stopped. She invoked the memory of her father, the late Antonio B. Juan Pat, first delegate to Congress. And of course, I've commented on this before, and I think we make a mistake with this legacy politics thing. Being a public office, elected offices are not supposed to be hereditary. The fact that your father was a Washington rep is an interesting but inconsequential fact. It doesn't mean that you should be the Washington rep. And I look forward to the time when we can elect people that don't have classy legacy type names, so that if your name is Magwaduk or Ekininguk or Azuzu or a real Chamorro name, that you'd have a shot at being elected. Okay, this is a quote. Like my father, I grew up the smallest of the group and had to fight to be seen and heard, fight for what's right, fight for what's fair. Now, is she deliberately discriminating against tall people here? Just because I'm not small? Is she saying I'm not worth, I shouldn't be heard? Probably. He probably has other reasons for saying it, too.
Get your heads out of the cloud, Bob.
Right. Juan Pat will face off in a Democratic primary with Senator Talina Nelson, who also announced a run for the delegate seat. Across the aisle, Republican Senator Jim Moylan is vying for the delegate seat with the backing of the Republican Party and stamp collectors on the island. All right, let's see what's next on the card here. I've got Bavacqua versus the Treasury. Friday is the day for Bavacqua's column, so I know I'll always have something to talk about. And although for three Fridays he didn't get involved in his usual America baiting like his standard stock and trade, Bavacqua used the UN as a venue to speak to the rest of the world about decolonizing Guam.
Nope.
The conversation around Guam's this is his column, his political status has been going on since the early 1970s. Guam's leaders at the time saw that from every corner of the globe, colonized people were fighting for their independence or were negotiating for their political future with their colonizers. This included the islands of the Trust Territory, of Micronesia. Well, here we go. There was never been a Trust Territory of Micronesia. So this is that airplane tray again, Jose. If he's referencing the islands of the Trust Territory of Micronesia, he obviously doesn't know what he's talking about. He should be saying Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands, which are now the Commonwealth of the Northern Marianas, the Federated States of Micronesia, the Republic of Palau, and the Republic of the Marshall Islands. So what happened was the Congress of Micronesia, something created by the United States as the administering authority of the Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands, set up a negotiating team to negotiate with the United States for the 4 island groups. Now, in the beginning, the United States took the position, we're only going to cut one deal for all the islands. The folks in the Mariana Islands, there was no Commonwealth, but the folks in the Marianas District of the Trust Territory of the Pacific Islands said, no, we don't want to go with the other 3 island groups, Palau, Marshalls, Micronesia. We want to negotiate with the United States. We want to get into the American family, is what they said. So there was a certain amount of conflagration, but that's finally what happened. So the Mariana Islands negotiators finally were able to negotiate a covenant with the United States that took the Mariana Islands out from under the Trust Territory of Pacific Islands and turned them into the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. That's what actually happened. It's not what Bavacqua thinks happened. Guam and all these islands are part of the Micronesian region. Now, let's talk a little bit about colonization, right? We hear this, our Micronesian brothers and sisters, and we're all Micronesians, etc. You know where the term Micronesia comes from, Jose?
The colonizer.
European map makers. They looked at the Pacific Islands, and the European map makers said, we're going to identify them in 3 separate groups. One group we're going to call Polynesia. Poly meaning many, Nesia meaning islands. Another group is made up of really small islands. It's what we call the Caroline Islands now. So we're going to call these really small islands Micronesia. And then there was another group of islands that had a history with a gentleman named Marshall. So we're going to, excuse me, let me retract that. Forget about Marshall Islands. Polynesia, Micronesia, and then the third group of islands is Melanesia, because the folks who lived in Melanesia have black skins. Melanesia, Micronesia, Polynesia, all the creation of European map makers. We're all Micronesians here. Guam and all these islands are part of the Micronesian region and have sometimes had similar political trajectories, but the fact that the rest of Micronesia has been decolonized while Guam remains a territory is a key difference. Now, once again, it's not what he said here, it's what he didn't say. What about the Northern Marianas? Folks in the Northern Marianas said, we want out of the trust territory, we want into the United States, we want to be a colony just like Guam, is basically what they said. Because we want to be part of the American family.
It's an inconvenience.
Yeah. But we don't want to talk about that. In truth, the U.S. had an obligation to decolonize Guam along with our neighboring islands. Beyond the simple hypocrisy of a country, Balak was a great one to talk about hypocrisy, right? He's kind of back to the pro-abortionist argument. Unless you've got a uterus, you don't have any business talking about abortion. And Bavakwa's rap is, unless you're a hypocrite yourself, you don't have any business talking about hypocrisy. All right, let's take a short break, and when we come back from the break, I'm going to see what Another Joe has to say, and then I'm going to go back into Bavakwa's column.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
The Federal Reserve is starting to increase interest rates to fight inflation, but they're still so low, making it the perfect time to refinance your home, to lower your rate, and perhaps take advantage of its increased value to put some cash in your pocket during these uncertain times. Cash that you can have the freedom to access when you want, where you want, with your Bank Pacific Visa debit card. Lower your rate with cash in your pocket. Access your cash when you want, where you want, with your Visa debit card. For others but branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, credit conditions apply.
All right, so here we are, after a short break. We're going to find out, is it safe? Another Joe wants to talk about the politically correct name for these islands. Anytime Another Joe gets a chance to talk about islands, you know where he goes with it. Compact impact. Go ahead, Another Joe.
Yes, Bob, according to the Post, you're the expert in the advisory committee, the COFA. I forget what the name of the committee is. Civil rights?
The United States Commission on Civil Rights, Guam Advisory Committee. I'm on it, yeah.
Yeah, it was going to be interesting to see how your leader, the pro-abortion lawyer, what's her name, Vanessa Williams, what stance she takes on it. Presumably she's a Democrat, so she won't want to offend the governor, the top Democrat on island.
The chief abortionist, yeah. And Vanessa is the chairperson of that Guam Advisory Committee.
So if the governor wants compact impact money, she probably wants to emphasize how Guam needs to get some more compact impact money. But we'll see. We'll see which way.
Well, I have a quote from her. This may be what she meant. It's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. Maybe every other choice in our lives means advocating for more compact impact money.
He probably got something there, Kabab. Yeah. So, regarding, you're talking about how the map makers first brought about this term Micronesia. I was looking at, I think it was 1831. Around about the time, I think that Robert Underwood said that the word Chamorro started coming to use, right?
He said that the word Chamorro first came into use about 1825.
Oh, okay, so about 6 years before the word Micronesia. So it'll be interesting to see, what was this Miguel Villar, the genetic scientist for the museum? I forget the name of that museum. What they come up with is with regards to they're still doing studies. I know they said Chamorros have a connection to Indonesia and islands in the northern part of the Philippines, which also connect somehow to Taiwan. So in theory, we have a connection to Taiwan, and we don't want Taiwan to be invaded by China because the indigenous people of Taiwan have rights. I think.
Are there any indigenous people of Taiwan left?
Good point. So I just wanted to chime in there and say, hey, by the way, Kabab, it's the politically correct term now, right? Is Indo-Pacific. It's no longer geopolitically Micronesia. And as far as how much of a Micronesia there is, as far as a region, like you said, it was first invented by map makers, and we have to wait until the DNA genetics or the scientists come up with the complete study of where Chamorros, what their connection is to, and how close are we related to any other people in the Indo-Pacific.
Well, I have a Facebook poster here, Elwin Champaco Quitano, who says that most of the population of the island migrated from, the great sailors from Sonsorol and that area, the area that we now call Micronesia. That's where most of the people that we call Chamorros' ancestors actually came from. But of course, he got beat up pretty bad when he said that on Facebook, but that's what he said.
Well, it'll be interesting to read and determine how he figures that, since we have actual historians, right, who say that people were brought into the Northern Marianas after a typhoon, devastated some islands in the Truk area.
I don't know that we have any historians, to tell you the truth. Maybe Bob Rogers, maybe not. Certainly not Ann Parasatori. Certainly not Michael Bavacqua. The fact that you really like history and you read a lot of history books doesn't make you a historian. It's a lot more complicated than that.
Okay, Uncle Bob, so we'll wait around for actual experts or historians to give us the facts and back it up with actual scientific evidence. Okay, Uncle Bob, I'll keep listening. Thanks.
Okay, so long, another Joe.
I'm going to think of his name, and I know that he is a writer from up in the CNMI who's done a couple of history books. Now I can't remember his name.
Don Farrell.
There you go.
Yeah.
Closest thing?
Well, in order to be a historian, you have to go to original source documents.
Okay.
You can't read what somebody else. You can't read 5 books by somebody else pull them all together into a single article and say, I'm a historian. So, yeah, I have a feeling that Farrell might be.
Even close maybe on Guam is Cunningham.
Probably.
Dr. Larry Cunningham.
Larry Cunningham, yeah. But not Ann Parasitore with that gigantic boner that she pilled on Downs versus Bidwell. You know, and in the military, there's an old saying, I can't use the correct word, but the old saying is that one aw shucks cancels out 100 attaboys, and one aw shucks, like, you know, this native and this Anglo-Saxon races, it's just so wrong that as far as I'm concerned, she could never recover if she ever had a reputation as a historian. Okay, we're just about to the to the big halftime show here. I was just reading this article about Bavacqua, so I'll just take it up until I've got to stop for the halftime show. Bavacqua says, in truth, the U.S. had an obligation to decolonize Guam along with our neighboring islands, beyond the simple hypocrisy of a country. And as I said, he's a good one to talk about hypocrisy. Okay, let's break for the halftime show, and we'll come back to hypocrisy after the halftime.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Parents demanding answers. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Many lingering questions in the wake of Tuesday's Texas school shooting.
Parents reportedly showed up to the scene during this mass shooting and were trying to not only get answers, but trying to figure out what's going on with their kids as they watched police officers seemingly standing there holding a perimeter. Many of these parents wanted to push back through that perimeter to see if their kids were okay. And that's where a lot of that frustration is coming from. Did police respond fast enough, and was enough done to save as many kids as possible?
Fox's Jeff Paul in Uvalde. Lieutenant Chris Oliveras of the Texas Department of Public Safety says a video that seems to show officers not trying to enter the school doesn't show the whole story.
And the officers you see on that video, as far as that video that's been circulating, those are officers that are setting a perimeter trying to keep people from going into that school, because again, it's still an active situation. We do not know exactly where that gunman is, if he's alive or what he's doing.
The gunman was in the school for an hour before he was killed by a Border Patrol tactical unit, but police believe most of the shootings took place in the first few minutes. The White House pressing for congressional action on gun control.
Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre insists President Biden's done a lot through executive action to reduce gun violence.
We cannot do this alone. The president cannot do this alone. So we're asking Congress to act.
Lawmakers have been unable to pass background check expansions or other enhanced gun laws after previous mass shootings, but Democrats and Republicans in the Senate are talking about potential proposals.
He is going to leave it to Senator Schumer, who is going through the mechanics of what that's going to look like, moving legislation forward.
President Biden and the First Lady will travel to Uvalde, Texas, Sunday.
Fox's Jared Halpern. At least 4 people have been killed. Others may be missing in a house explosion in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. That's about 40 miles northwest of Philadelphia. America is listening to Fox News.
The Federal Reserve is starting to increase interest rates to fight inflation, but they're still so low, making it the perfect time to refinance your home, to lower your rate, and perhaps take advantage of its increased value to put some cash in your pocket during these uncertain times. Cash that you can have the freedom to access when you want, where you want, with your Bank Pacific Visa debit card. Lower your rate with cash in your pocket. Access your cash when you want, where you want, with your Visa debit card. Brothers put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, Credit conditions apply.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuman location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
An effort by the U.S. to punish North Korea for recent missile launches has failed in the UN Security Council.
China and Russia vetoed new sanctions on North Korea, as they've done repeatedly, and as was noted by U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, ahead of Thursday's sanctions vote.
It is engaged in an unprovoked series of 23, and let me repeat that, 23 ballistic missile launches since the beginning of the year, and is actively preparing to conduct a nuclear test.
China's ambassador to the UN said what's needed is peaceful dialogue, that sanctions will only make things worse. And he said they do not want anyone to make use of the situation on the Korean Peninsula as a card for their strategic or geopolitical agenda. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
Closing arguments are scheduled today in the trial of former Clinton campaign attorney Michael Sussman on charges he lied to the FBI about his motivation for giving them information about the Trump presidential campaign. A long prison sentence for a man who admitted bilking banks out of millions.
Christopher Montalbano is exchanging his designer clothes for prison garments. The 39-year-old pleaded guilty to conspiracy, bank fraud, and money laundering. Prosecutors say Montalbano used shell companies to take out more than 140 loans from at least 20 institutions, funding a lifestyle that included high-end homes, farmland, luxury cars, and a jet with a private pilot. The Alabama man was sentenced to 15 years in prison and ordered to pay $12 million in restitution. His 77-year-old father awaits sentencing on a conspiracy conviction. He says he took part in the scheme at the request of his son. Rich Dennison, Fox News.
California's parole board says more than 50 years behind bars is enough for convicted killer Patricia Krenwinkel. They voted to parole the former Manson follower convicted in the Tate LaBianca murders in 1969. Governor Newsom has the final say. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Half a day. Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has a management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
Check out the newest hydro and garden center to hit Guam, Crop King Hydro. We have a huge selection of plant nutrients, soils, hydroponic mediums, organic pest control pumps, plant support, tools, and so much more. Call 635-4769. 635-GROW. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 6 at the Dededo Satina Mall, right across from Payless and Paradise Fitness. For whatever you grow, think Crop King Hydro. Crop King Hydro.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Okay, so another great halftime show here on Tall Tales. We are now in the second half of the last episode of Tall Tales this week. Unfortunately, we're going to sign off for 3 whole days here at 1800. We won't be back until Tuesday. Jose and I are going to miss all you tailgaters out there, and I know you're going to miss us, but life is full of challenges. Okay, I was talking about hypocrisy, something that Bavacqua is perhaps a black belt in. He says the simple hypocrisy of a country that claims to have the monopoly on freedom and liberty and having formal colonies, the obligation of the U.S. is something that exists within the United Nations. I wrote last week about the list of non-self-governing territories that the United Nations overseas. Guam is on the list, not because of the UN interfering in U.S. affairs. It was placed on that list by the U.S. itself in 1946. 1946, a brand new United Nations, I think maybe 35 or so members at the time. The real action was the Security Council. The Security Council was the World War II victors, the United States, Great Britain, France, China, and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. That was the Security Council, and those were the guys that could decide whether or not the United Nations would call on its members to support a war. And that's exactly what happened when the Democratic People's Republic of Korea invaded South Korea. Fortunately, on the day that the Security Council met to consider sending troops into Korea, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic delegate was absent. And there's a lot of speculation as to why he wasn't there, but can't get into that right now. But the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, at the time, I think there were a dozen Soviet Socialist Republics in the Union. And the USSR said, you know, we should have 12 seats at the UN. They settled for 3. Ukraine, what was called Byelorussia, and the Russian Federation. Those are the 3 members. But almost everything the United States did at the time was to counter whatever the Russians did, the Cold War. I believe it was in 1947 when Winston Churchill made his famous speech in a little city in Missouri, where he said, from Stettin in the Baltic to Trieste in the Adriatic, an iron curtain has descended over Europe. Fulton, Missouri. Fulton, Missouri, yeah. So, you know, if it was, and I remember as a schoolboy at the time looking at maps that were colored, and you'd see the Russia, the Soviet Union and its satellites continuing to expand. It was pretty scary, you know. All of Eastern Europe, much of Southeast Asia, North Korea, etc. So the conventional wisdom at the time was that the United States said, yeah, you guys get rid of your colonies, we'll get rid of ours. It was more of a poker move than anything really sincere. But it's there. We're stuck with it. I think it's probably on the list of foreign policy objectives of the United States. If the list had 30 items on it, I suspect this would be item number 31.
Context matters.
It does indeed. It really does. But it's a source of great glee for Bavacqua and the separates. Oh, you know, where you guys have put us on the non-self-governing territories list. Now, of course, I make the argument that we have, the only reason we don't have full home government is because we haven't done what we could. We haven't enacted our own constitution, which we've had the ability to do for 30 years. for over 30 years. We haven't enacted our own tax code, which we could have done for over 25 years. So we have complete home rule. We are subject to the laws of Congress. But guess what? States are subject to the laws of Congress. It's just part of the American system. So even if we were a state, you know, the criteria for non-self-governing territories might still not be satisfied. But to me, this whole non-self-governing territories thing comes down to a big so what. Because if you really stop and analyze where we are, we're part of the American family. We have been a recognized part of the American family since 1950. We have home rule. We have a non-voting delegate in Congress who has all the rights, privileges, etc. of a congressman. Doesn't get to vote. He's got all the rest of the stuff. We have an important role in the United States. We have perks that a state would only dream of. The mirror image tax code, Section 30 funds, all the stuff that I talk about all the time. So we really only have two choices if we're talking about political status. I've explained before why free association is a non-starter. Statehood, legally possible, practically impossible. So that just leaves two things: independence, legally possible and possible, or continued membership in the American family. Who wants Guam to be an independent, sovereign, completely free from the United States? Bavacqua and about a half dozen other people that are very vocal and very persistent. But that's what it really comes down to. He goes on to say, I wrote last week about the list of non-self-governing territories that the United Nations oversees. Guam and other territories are on the list because some of the international principles that countries today are supposed to abide by and protect are self-determination and decolonization. The UN is built on, among other things, the principle that colonialism and colonies are a thing of the past and should have no place in today's world. That's not what the United Nations is built on. Not at all. It's if it's anything, it's kind of an afterthought. The idea behind the United Nations was we don't ever want to have another war, like 1 and 2. And a way not to have another war is to have this worldwide organization where people can sit down and resolve their grievances and their problems in some other manner than going to war. That's the reason for the United Nations. It wasn't after World War II and the victors all got together and said, you know, we got to have an organization that deals with decolonization. Certainly the French weren't in charge of that. The first thing the French wanted to do after the war was over was go back and reclaim their Southeast Asia territories. And once again, the Cold War, when that was on the horizon, Cold War, once again, the Communist Party was quite active in Europe. They had Eastern Europe under control. There were communist parties in almost, if not almost, all of the countries in Western Europe, including France. And the Communist Party in France had a certain amount of strength. So the French government wanted to go back and reclaim their territories in Southeast Asia. And of course, the communists in France said, no, leave them alone. Yeah. So the United States figured we better go with France on this. You know, Southeast Asia is a long ways away. We've got to continue to have France as our allies. We'll sign up with them to reclaim their territories. Good decision, bad decision. Very easy to make that ruling now. But that perhaps wasn't quite so easy right after World War II. Bavacqua goes on to say, he uses the key word here, simple. Whenever you see the word simple or simply, you know, someone's trying to put something over you, on you. This is a simple truth that is often rarely understood in terms of local decolonization conversation. You may not agree with someone like me who is pushing for a status change for the island. to something more genuinely self-governing, statehood, free association, or independence. No, Bavakwa, you're pushing for independence. You are a separatist. But my position isn't something born from radicals and malcontents. It's something the U.S. has accepted internationally by virtue of being a member of the UN and placing Guam on its list of territories. The obligation to decolonize goes well beyond any local discussion on the matter. Then why do you keep talking about it? But of
like
course,
St. Lucia.
but of course, what he's saying is that I shouldn't be talking about it because the UN, right? Yeah. It's not that the U.S. doesn't, as a country, believe in things such as self-determination and decolonization. It absolutely supports these issues, but always on a selective basis. For peoples around the world, especially those struggling against the influence and interference of the enemies of the U.S., their self-determination and ability to determine their destiny is sacred. No. You can only use sacred for land on Guam that the military wants. It's a restricted word. But if their self-determination or decolonization interferes with U.S. interests, suddenly the U.S. develops amnesia. And this stalwart support for sacred principles evaporates. The U.S. isn't alone in this regard. It's a common position at the UN. It's called realpolitik, Michael. They are happy to invoke human rights ideals when it comes to criticizing those they oppose, but when others make the same critiques, suddenly those sacred principles matter little. I don't see anything sacred about any of this stuff. I'm a purist. Sacred has to have some sort of a divinity dimension to it, or it really isn't sacred. This is why it's important to use the UN as a venue for speaking to the rest of the world. The UN cannot compel the U.S. to decolonize its territories, but it continues to remind it of its obligations, especially when it's something it would rather forget. More of the same. Okay. I've got our Carl, Guam's gubernatorial candidates. He doesn't want to talk about Bavakwa unless you're thinking that Bavakwa would make a good gubernatorial candidate, our Carl. Is that the case?
No, that's far from it.
Yeah. I'd really like to have the ability to vote in an election in which he was a candidate, but go on.
Yeah, I called in really about the gubernatorial field, but I'd like to just make a quick comment about what you were talking about because it got my interest. You know, the United States really should have the same approach as they had with Russia or the Soviet Union. You know, just tell them, you know, when you decolonize your satellite countries, we can talk maybe.
Yeah.
So we need to tell China, you know, when you can decolonize from your brutal oppression of Tibet and Xinjiang, formerly East Turkestan, and Inner Mongolia, you know, maybe we can talk, and then, you know, throw in the Spratly Islands and the Nine Dashes area of the South China Sea. Communism, you know, Marxism hasn't changed. It's all about power. It's all about expansionism. You know, Ukraine, what's happening now, Putin has openly said that the greatest catastrophe of the 20th century was the collapse of the USSR, and he's supposed to have some kind of cancer. I believe he wants, as his legacy, to rebuild as much of the old Soviet empire as he can. So when the United Nations can talk about those acts of brutal oppression and mass murder, maybe we can talk. But until then, no, I don't think so.
Good point, Arco.
Yeah, the primary reason I called in was about the gubernatorial field. I'm kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. There's no way I can back the Leon Guerrero administration after they threw the private sector under the bus and protected the GovGuam workers as a way of locking in her
primary voter base, and she still continues to do that. There's no possible way. As far as Camacho Ada, I don't know why Camacho chose Ada. Anyone that has the mark of the
Let me interrupt here a second, Carl.
Sure.
Do you think that Camacho chose Ada? Consider this: Ada has run for lieutenant governor in the last 2 elections. The first time he chose Ray Tenorio. The second time he's choosing Felix Camacho. So I guess what he really wants to be is lieutenant governor, and he's just chosen a couple of running mates to run for that office. But go on with your story.
Well, anyone with that mark, the Juan Pat 10 pay raise smash and grab, I cannot support. And why he chose to tie the albatross around his neck, I really don't know, because it makes it almost impossible for me to support him. That one incident, the Juan Pat 10 pay raise smash and grab, changed my voting patterns. For election after election, going back decades, I voted straight line Republican pretty much, and I was the first time I refused to vote for any of the Republicans that had anything to do with that fiasco. And the election after that, I went down to voting just 5 Republicans for senator. The election after that, I voted for 5 Republicans, no incumbents. So that one incident really changed my voting pattern, and I will not forget. I refuse to forget. I'm mystified why he did that. As far as Michael St. Nicholas, he's a Democrat. I did vote for him. I like his stands he takes, and he showed some spine, regarding the firing range and the troop buildup. And you mentioned about the pay raise issue, which I'd forgotten about. So I like that. I'm just disappointed that he only spent 1 term in Congress, because there's so much that needs to be done. I'm also disappointed that he chose to jump on the identity politics bandwagon with the what was it? The issue that came up. I'm trying to think of the name of that that legal issue that came up before. With Puerto Rico, the tax issue.
The tax issue in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, remember that? There was some bananas being imported into the United States.
Oh, yeah, Downs versus Bidwell.
Yeah, exactly. The
Insular cases.
Yeah, the insular cases. And, I think I remember him jumping on that and, framing it as, the racist insular cases, and it just made me wince,
Yeah.
When people do that, it really turns me off, and it's a really easy way to lose my support, very easy. Once you tread too far into the woke territory, you're right up against the edge, right up against the edge. And Ada has never renounced that his stand on that. That's another thing that just boggles my mind. Chris Duenas had his fingerprints on it, but he had the humility to come out and say, I regret what I did. I see that the voters spanked me really hard, and it won't happen again. So I gave him another chance. But to not denounce that, that's automatic out. I cannot support that.
And not only did Tony Ada not denounce it, he was one of the rascals that was thrown out because of the Juan Pat 10. And then he was Ray Tenorio's running mate, and as part of the campaign, he said, yeah, senators, that was a good thing. Senators deserve a raise. So he doubled down on it, even after he was on the legislature, telling me that if he ever had the chance to do it again, he would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I couldn't support Ray Tenorio, even though I, tended to vote Republican. But that pay raise issue really, as I listened to Ken Leon Guerrero and you explain what had happened, I mean, it really awakened something in me as far as my voting patterns. Having an R after someone's name no longer impresses me. I just, there's people. I've seen too many people with R's after their name that are just, they do things that are just, I don't know how to put it, just dumb.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know what you think, Bob, if you can add any clarity to this, but I'm really stuck, as far as who am I going to vote for. So far, Michael Nicholas is kind of edging ahead, by a nose, but I've just got issues with all three of the candidates.
Well, sometimes in the game of politics, you can't go for the better. You have to go for the least worst. And sometimes you have to grab your nose with your index finger and your thumb, squeeze tightly, hold your nose, and vote for the least worst. I'm reserving right now as to who the least worst is, but if it weren't for Tony Atta, if Felix had chosen anyone who was not tainted like Tony Atta, it'd be easy for me. I'd vote for Felix every time. And of course, we know that the lieutenant governor ordinarily doesn't add much strength to the ticket. He can detract from it, and that's where I see Tony Atta. Tony Atta still has time to come out and do a Chris Duenas. But maybe it may already be too late. It may be seen as just a ploy to try to win over the most dangerous man in the room and his large block of voters.
It can be done by a lieutenant governor, because when Ray Tenorio was the stand-in lieutenant governor, that's when this happened, this pay raise issue.
Right.
So, they don't have a lot of power when the governor is on island, but once they take off, they have some power to do some mischief. So.
True enough, Carl.
Okay, Bob, that's my 2 bits for the day. I'll wait for a Frenchie to call in or some other people.
Okay, good talking to you, Carl. Okay, let's head for Wrigley Field in the 7th inning stretch.
Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Okay, here we are at Wrigley Field, the 7th inning stretch, and as part of our regular routine, and today is Friday, so we're going to listen to Lou Leon Guerrero, a very pro-abortion to the point of infanticide person. We're going to listen to her testimony on the, what is it called, the Born Alive Act, Jose? Yeah. A statute that is now on the books that requires that if a baby somehow survives a botched abortion, that attending physicians are to do their best to save the life of that baby. Governor Leon Guerrero said, no, if it's a botched abortion, just let the baby die. So we're going to go through chapter and verse right now. Go ahead, Jose.
Mr. Chair and members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Leon Guerrero, and thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you some of my thoughts and comments regarding Bill 195-32. I am aware that there is already federal legislation that addresses the issue at hand, thus making this legislation unnecessary. As I read the bill, what was glaring to me is that you are now walking into the realm of medical practice that is not your area of expertise. By passing this bill, you're saying to me that you are allowing a special interest group to say that you and they know better than the experts in obstetrics, family practice, pediatrics, neonatology, and medicine. By way of this bill, you have taken away the discretion, the responsibility, the acumen, and the judgment of that medical professional who is on the ground experiencing the circumstances and is more equipped to make the decisions. There are medical standards vetted through scientific research and medical knowledge that govern the practice of doctors and guide them in making their decisions. By way of this bill, you have said to our doctors, who are well respected and highly regarded in our community, we have no confidence in your ability. This bill not only diminishes the medical profession, but it further carries them to jail by criminalizing them if they refuse to abide by the mandate. By way of this bill, you have affirmed that doctor to have committed aggravated murder, and for that crime, we will put that doctor in jail for life. And by the way, they will rot in jail because you are not eligible for parole, work release, or educational programs outside the confines of prison. If this bill passes, we as a community, through your representation, will have mandated a government policy that ignores medical expertise and puts not only our doctors, but also our nurses, medical assistants, our physician assistants, and any health professional present at that event, and we're putting them in jail. These health professionals are treasures. They are valuable resources. We are working hard to recruit and retain them, and now we send them a message that they may end up in jail for practicing their profession. I know and truly believe, Senators, that this is not the route you want to travel. This bill is very anti-quality of life because it does not consider the expense that the family will incur as a result of mandating treatment that most likely will not result in a quality of life outcome for the infant. Instead, what this bill does is it will burden the family with enormous medical bills. On the conservative side, if care and treatment is given for a year, that family or the government, if the infant becomes a ward of the territory, will at a minimum pay $273,000 a year just on hospital room charges. This does not include pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, and health professional time. So it will be $273,000 plus a year. This means taking away limited resources that could be used by others that may have a better chance of a quality of life. I know that some will say you cannot put a price tag on life and money should not be a factor. But the reality of the situation is the family, the government, does not have the human and economic resource to provide the care that is required to sustain a life that medical science will tell you is not living a quality of life. You struggle daily to meet the challenges of healthcare costs. We saw that with the hospital and health insurance debates that you guys made. And now this bill will further add on to the challenges when it does not have to. Lastly, I would like to make this comment. We all have a greater challenge in our island. The community's more concerned on how we can decrease our unemployment rate of 13.3%. We are very concerned on how we can work together to provide more jobs because our job growth has been stagnant over the last 5 years. We are very concerned about access to health care. We are very concerned that we are not screaming to the federal government to include us in the health insurance exchange so that we can have affordable health care to everyone. We are very concerned about how we can provide affordable housing to many first-time home owners. We are extremely concerned about the rising crimes we see today. People do not feel safe in their homes. Women are scared to go to the grocery stores alone because they fear that they could be robbed in the middle of the day. Employees do not feel safe in their work environment. Domestic violence is on the rise. Sexual assault of minors and rape cases are on the rise. You have in your campaigns pledged to work on these issues. You were all voted to help address these concerns. The issues you ran on were why you are my senators. Most of the voters did not vote for you based on whether you are pro-choice or pro-life. Please, let's get back on track to the more compelling issues at hand that have a greater impact to the quality of life of our people. I ask that when you are considering this bill to seriously consider the negative consequences of this piece of legislation that I have just enumerated. Please talk to as many people as you feel is necessary. Talk to the experts that can give you factual and objective information. I trust that you will do your due diligence, and I know that you will act in favor of the greater good of our community. And in so doing, you will arrive to the conclusion that this bill should not pass. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So there you have it. A botched abortion, a live child lying on the treatment table in a hospital. Don't do anything to help that baby stay alive.
And what makes this even worse is that type of language can apply to anybody she deems as not worthy of life or have a quality of life that she deems is
the quality of life that matches up to her expectations. Now, for you younger fellas, that's kind of academic. But, you know, when you got some advanced years, you can apply that same reasoning to us older folks. Did the manam kunai, sangin walango amkuna tautau, sangin tadza salapenya, basta ne medico. Just let him die. It's more cost effective. It's more cost effective to let the old man die than to spend a lot of money preserving his life for, a while. So it all comes down to dollars and cents as far as our governor is concerned. It's strictly a calculation. And of course, if you're pro-abortion to begin with, you start out with the idea that, well, the baby's supposed to be dead anyhow. This isn't the way it's supposed to work. So it doesn't work right. It doesn't work the way it's supposed to work. Well, we'll just fix it and make it right. Okay, I got a couple of the folks here in the green room who maybe want to talk about what we just witnessed. We've got Governor Lou's testimony. Mary wants to talk about that. So I'm going to go straight to Mary on that one. Go ahead, Mary.
Oh, yeah, hi. I just heard what Lou said, and I hope that people really listen to that because exactly what you're saying, it's the cost of the health care of that baby for a year when we don't even know what the problems would be, and that it is money, what you're talking about, and we're going to be going into this in society because who should live and who should die. And I took care of both of my in-laws in their old age, and my father-in-law was almost 93 when he died. But, he had Medicare his whole life, and he never used it. And when he wanted to go to the hospital in his old age, I took him. Because until my father-in-law was ready to say, I don't want to be treated anymore, I want to just be let go to die, I couldn't speak for him. And I had a very devoted doctor who just said, just take care of him at home. And I tried to make him understand that if it was up to me, I would say yes, but that's not my choice. And knowing my father-in-law's choice is important. And this is what she said is long-term validation for euthanasia or a child born with multiple handicap that don't deserve to live, because in other states, they want to push a period of perinatal allowing a child to die in the very first 30 days of their life without treatment, which means that if a baby was born with Down syndrome and the parents didn't want him, they could kill him. And this is what's going through in the states. I think they already passed it in the state of Maryland. They're trying to do it now in California. And one state got wise and they didn't allow them to pass it. But this is the way our society is going to be. We don't have enough IVs with water, so you need hydration. Well, we need it for somebody else, not you. And it doesn't make any difference if you're not that sick, and it might help you live. And when it comes time, when I die, it's that they'll take the choice out of the family's hands, and the doctors will make the decision who lives and who dies. And this is and also, all this stuff on abortion. It's the same thing they did in China. In China, nobody wanted girls. They all wanted boys. And what they did is they put the girls in rooms, and they wouldn't feed them unless someone came in and wanted to adopt them and were willing to pay for it. And now in China, they have too many men, like 70 million men who will never be able to find a partner in life, because of the choice of destroying females. And now China enforced abortions, limiting the size of the family. But now China's changed because they realize that they're not going to be able to sustain their society. And all these things that are, for the good of the society, well, it's very sad. Because people are just opening the door for all this stuff to go through, and the beginning of it is an abortion. And abortion is killing your own child. And the thing is, they never say that to you. They never say, well, that baby is part you. It's not just part of the other person. That is your baby. And they never tell you that. What they say, the abortionists and Planned Parenthood, they say, you can have a child later. Sometimes I know people that have aborted their child and they've never had the opportunity again to have one. We don't know. We don't know how things are going to work out in our lives. And I just have to say that wake up, Guam, and look around. We have many women who are rabid about not having abortion. And I want to share with you that I hear what these women are saying, but they're telling you everything negative. It's never easy to have a baby. Never. But the greatest gift that God ever gave me was my children. And you don't recognize it at first because you have them and you got to take care of them, and that's your priority. But that is what life and procreation is. And procreation is what you do to have a child. And if you don't want it, maybe you should use birth control. I know the Catholic Church doesn't support that, but that prevents pregnancy. But it's amazing. Maybe the birth control isn't really pushed here in society. Which, I'm on the fence now because I'm thinking abortion is horrible. Or if people don't want children, just have your tubes tied, and then you don't have to have any children or worry about abortion. That's a choice that we all make, and I've made the choice myself. So that's all I have to say, is this is absolutely horrible. And we're going to become a socialist country now, because there's no value for human life. I know somebody that has a relative that, through no fault of their own, had a cardiac arrest, and there was no one there to open the airway. And now this person is being taken care of devotedly by his family, and they're giving up their life to take care of him. And people can say, "Oh, well, just let him go. Just do this, just do that." But that's not the point. The point is that is their family member. And no matter what happened to him, they still love him. And they every month, the family works together to keep his life intact, of making sure he's fed and he is given food and water to drink. And people may say that he's nothing, he's a vegetable, but that's their brother.
Yeah,
I'm saying this because it's going to happen to all of us.
You told Jose that you wanted to talk about the governor's testimony and the slippery slope. Well, you've certainly identified the slippery slope, Mary, in no uncertain terms. So I thank you for calling in.
I'm sorry I took so long.
Tailgaters almost always get it right. So thanks again, Mary.
Okay.
Okay, I've got another Joe and our Keith on the line. Another Joe has already ridden on the merry-go-round once. He perhaps got a little dizzy, so I'm going to let our Keith on the merry-go-round first, and then another Joe, but we got to do it at Churchill Downs.
The Federal Reserve is starting to increase interest rates to fight inflation, but they're still so low, making it the perfect time to refinance your home, to lower your rate, and perhaps take advantage of its increased value to put some cash in your pocket during these uncertain times. Cash that you can have the freedom to access when you want, where you want, with your Bank Pacific Visa debit card. Lower your rate, put cash in your pocket. Access your cash when you want, where you want, with your Visa debit card. Where let's put branches, we place roots, and we're rooting for you. Equal housing lender, credit conditions apply.
Kings Guam World Tennis Tour, presented by GTA, is bringing international tennis back to Guam. 4 weeks of international play will swing into action with 2 weeks of juniors, followed by 2 weeks of pros, May the 15th through June 12th. The Guam National Tennis Federation will host world-ranked players who will be coming to Guam from all over the world. Netters will compete for ranking points and cash to improve their position among the world's best. Matches will be played daily at the Guam National Tennis Center in Harmon, starting May 15th through June 12th. Special thanks to our platinum sponsors, Dimension Systems, New Gen, American Medical Center, and Morico Equipment.
There we are, Churchill Downs in Louisville. Just a couple more furlongs and I'll be crossing the finish line, and I won't be back for 3 days. Sorry about that, folks. I've got another Joe in the green room, but I'm going to go to our Keith first because another Joe has already ridden the merry-go-round once today. Good afternoon, our Keith.
Good afternoon, Bob. Far be it for me to invoke Godwin's law, but it does seem to be applicable here. I recall another society, another culture sometime in the early 20th century that decided it would be it would pose judgment on what lives were worth living and what lives were not. I'd love to hear someone tell me what the difference is between the language that I'm hearing coming out of the pro-abortion lobby, as our government and our governor, who are perfectly willing to sacrifice an infant because they believe it will not live a full life or whatever have you when they don't know. I wish I had better computer skills. It would be a wonderful meme. Maybe this is a homework assignment for someone though. To juxtapose a photo of the guy with the funny mustache and the governor and compare one of her quotes to one of his.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, the fact that you can be born in either one of their estimations doesn't mean that you should be born.
Yeah. It really is the height of arrogance to believe I'm in the position of judging whether, someone can be born or is worth living. Who the hell do you think you are?
Well, of course, in the case of the Red Queen, we know the answer to that. She wasn't even the governor when she made that speech at the legislature.
You know, a little side note. I'm not going to get bogged down on it. But a little side note. She's talking about crime going up. Wait a minute. Her quote was before she was governor?
Yeah.
Oh, because it's interesting that in the past 2 years, we have seen skyrocketing crime, skyrocketing violent crime, rapes, child molestation, drug use, property crime, and absolutely no one is making the correlation of why in the past 2 years, 2.5 years, and it's only getting worse, and what the potential causes are. But that's a little off topic for another time.
Well, I hear what you're saying, but if you look at a society and you try to look at the fabric of a society, what expectations can a society have when it has killed 62 million of its members, 63 million of its members before they even had a chance to be born? We used to think, when I was a kid, we used to think life was precious. Nowadays, not so much.
No. I recall growing up learning about Roman society and how they used to, throw Christians and others to the lions and just absolutely brutalized treatment. And we call ourselves, oh, well, that's so uncivilized. We're much more civilized than that. Not anymore.
It's true. It's true. So you'd have to be a sociologist, a philosopher, you have a good theological background just to kind of tie all these things together and figure out the relationships. But anyhow, R. Keith, I'm glad you chimed in. As usual, you're right on point and a valuable addition to the Tall Tales Tailgaters lineup. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you. Gentlemen, have a fine 3-day weekend.
We'll struggle through it. Thanks. Okay, and now we've got another Joe who wants to talk about Governor Lou LG's testimony. Go ahead, another Joe.
Well, it's like you said, she made this testimony before she was governor. It looks as though her point of view has shifted, since she made that speech, because she said in that speech that elected leaders, her point of view was they were elected not to be pro-life or pro-choice. There were other issues, but clearly now that she's in office, she's looking for a pro-abortion doctor. That's kind of a change in position, I think. Why would you need specifically a pro-abortion doctor when if the life of the health of the life of the mother is at risk anytime during childbearing or childbirth? I would think that most doctors would be trained in the medical profession how to deal with it.
Well, the hard fact is that we've got doctors here on the island that are very pro-abortion, but it's such a moral downer that they won't even do abortions. Dr. Bez and Dr. Bordallo and these other pro-abortionists, they're not going to do it themselves. Who would want to? How would you be able? Well, I can only go through the cliches. How can you live with yourself if you make your living taking away the life of unborn babies?
So they can't even do it because it's against their moral conscience. So, there's a disconnect there, Bob, and that's kind of the point is there's an issue, there's a question nowadays in the younger generations of morals and ethics and, the values that people have. It sounds cliche, but, we used to think that it was important to be Christian and have Christian values. Now that's being attacked. You can't pray in the public schools or public sports events. You can't, there's a bunch of things you can't do that anymore. But they want to teach our children that boys can identify as girls and girls can identify as boys on a whim, as if they are experts. And it's at up to third grade, when parents say, no, we don't want our children to be taught these sexual identity issues up to third grade. And then they're saying that parents are terrorists stateside anyway. And hope to God that doesn't become an attitude here, because the parents go to these Board of Education meetings and they want their point of view to be known, and as parents, responsible parents. So yeah, it's a slippery slope, as was it the other comment that the other caller was saying, and there's also an issue of moral change, definitely shift in what we think of as morals and ethics amongst the younger generations. So before I forget, I'm going to miss you guys for 3 days, and thanks. I'll just keep listening.
Okay, another Joe. We're just about to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow here. I got one little note I want to make on Facebook, and we'll head for Churchill Downs. I mean, for this thing is not working the way I want it to work. Yeah, so what do we got? 2 minutes, Jose? 1 minute? Yeah, so I didn't get into Kool-Aid versus Vicente Blas Tyron, Pete's Grove versus Vanessa Williams, Beto versus Robert, Tom Woods versus eco-fascists, and France versus Russia. So just goes to show you how exciting the show is going to be when we finally get back on Tuesday. So we'll see you then. And right now I got to just say, let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagatna, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Fatal house explosion. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. At least 4 people are dead, others unaccounted for in an explosion in a residential neighborhood in Pottsville, Pennsylvania, outside Philadelphia.
At least 2 homes were flattened. Several others were damaged. The explosion could be heard. It could be seen for miles. The concussion of the blast blew out home windows in the area. Witnesses I spoke with tell me they thought a plane had crashed.
It's Chris O'Connell of Fox 29 in Philadelphia, who says it appears to have been a natural gas leak. In Uvalde, Texas, many unanswered questions from Tuesday's school shooting that left 19 children and 2 teachers dead.
It only took the shooter 12 minutes from the time he crashed his truck to get inside the school, and investigators say they believe the door on the west side where he entered was unlocked. Investigators also say that it was at this point during the first few minutes that he was inside the school where most of the shots were fired.
Fox's Jeff Paul in Uvalde. Victor Escalon of the Texas Department of Public Safety says there are many details they just don't know yet.
We want to know what happened, recreate the scene. That takes days, that takes hours, that takes time. A lot of information.
Escalon says, contrary to earlier reports, the shooter was not confronted by a school resource officer. There is another loss in Uvalde. Joe Garcia, the husband of Irma Garcia, one of the teachers killed in the rampage, died of a heart attack Thursday as he was making plans for his wife's funeral. A bipartisan group of senators discussing possible gun law reforms. Connecticut Democrat Senator Richard Blumenthal supporting so-called red flag laws.
The Second Amendment gun rights are fully compatible, absolutely consistent with a red flag statute that temporarily separates somebody from a gun if they're going to kill themselves or someone else.
America is listening to Fox News.
Get all of your
your favorite Fox News podcasts ad-free on Apple Podcasts with Fox News Podcasts Plus. From Trey Gowdy, the Fox News Rundown, Will Kane, Brian Kilmeade, and so much more. Go to foxnewspodcasts.com for all the details. The Fox News Rundown, a contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. Your daily dose of news twice a day, featuring insight from top newsmakers, reporters, and Fox News contributors. Listen and subscribe now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. New from the Fox News Podcasts Network, Dana Perino, co-host of the 5 and America's Newsroom on Fox News Channel, returns to the world of audio with a new limited-time podcast, Everything Will Be Okay with Dana Perino. Building off the success of her best-selling book of the same name, Dana provides an unequaled brand of advice built on real-life experience and interviews experts and individuals that make a difference in the lives of others. Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
President Biden will offer the commencement address at the U.S. Naval Academy today.
The speech will not be Biden's first before graduates at Annapolis. He spoke in 2010 and 2015 as vice president. Today's remarks will be his first as commander-in-chief. More than 1,000 will receive their diplomas today. The commencement also serves as a commissioning ceremony. A majority will swear an oath and advance into the U.S. military either as naval ensigns or second lieutenants in the Marines. Vice President Kamala Harris delivered the address last year. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Closing arguments are scheduled this morning in Michael Sussman's trial, the former attorney for Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign, accused of lying to the FBI. California's parole board has recommended freedom for Charles Manson follower Patricia Krenwinkel. She helped in the 1969 Tate and LaBianca murders that left 7 people dead. Governor Gavin Newsom could reject the parole board's decision. AAA reports the average price for a gallon of gasoline has dropped a fraction of a cent since yesterday, but still nearly $4.60 a gallon as millions of Americans prepare to hit the road for the first summer holiday.
The unofficial start to summer will see more of us traveling by car than last year, according to AAA.